Paul, can I ask, did you create a messenger group for us or not?
No, what I did is in the actual Facebook group.
Okay.
I created a chat in the Facebook group.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, so when you go there, all right. So we started streaming. Okay, so hi there, welcome everybody to Chapter 1 of Think and Grow Rich. Before we start, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I hope that you all got through it okay and all that. Before we start, I just want to, the book actually started with this chapter, and I thought it's quite a prophetic start to the chapter, and it goes, truly, thoughts of things and powerful things at that, when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other object material or other material objects. So the book's called Think and Grow Rich, and the very first chapter talks about the power of thoughts. So with that, let's take it away. There's a lot of interesting stories within that one. The first story was about Edward C. Barnes, who went into business with Thomas Edison. So who's got some insights about what they saw or what they thought about that first story?
Well,
yes, Gregory.
I really like how Barnes, he made a decision of what he wanted before he went and spoke to Edison, and he told them what he was there to do. I think they kind of laughed at that and liked it, but he got a low-level job in there, but he knew what he wanted. He knew what he was there for, whether the rest of them realized it would happen or not. And he persisted, and he got the opportunity with the machine. I can't remember the name of the machine that nobody else wanted any part of and didn't think it was going to do anything. And that eventually he did so well with that, it took off with it, that he got his partnership with Edison all those years later. He knew what he wanted. He made his decision. He stuck to it, and he achieved it. And I think that's a great story. He was successful from the second he made that decision, and he just went through the process until he got the ultimate goal. And that is a great story about the power of thought. It's not just thought, the decision, the determination, his persistence. I mean, it was all there, but it all began with a thought and a decision.
And the important thing about that thought is he knew what he wanted. He didn't want to just go and work with Edison. He wanted to go into partnership with Edison, and it was a dictating machine that none of the other salespeople wanted to sell, and he saw the opportunity. And there's this, within the book, it actually turns around and says that opportunity comes in the most unlikely way sometimes. Now, that's not the way that Barnes saw himself going into business with Edison. No, but when the opportunity came, he went and took the opportunity and ended up in business with him. And I think there was the phrase in the book where it says, "Made by Edison, installed by Barnes." So he did the
love it.
Yeah. Alison, what was your take on that?
So the two things, I love how Greg has kind of very nicely encapsulated the story about Barnes. But the two things I really loved, one of which you've already said, Paul, and I've actually written down the not just notes but some of the quotes, which is opportunity has a sly habit of slipping in by the back door, often disguised in the form of misfortune or defeat. And so Barnes didn't get the job that he wanted, but he got another job, as Gregory said, at a completely different sort of level, doing something completely different. But he persevered, and he took that opportunity that came later on, as you said, because no other salesperson wanted to sell the machine. So he pretty much put his hand up to Edison and said, "Look, I'll do that." And then what he did with his marketing was say, made by Edison, but what installed by Barnes. But the other thing I really like about Barnes is that, and Hill actually states this, that he didn't have money, he didn't have education, he didn't have all the outward um, prerequisites that you think, how can I, Mr. Insignificant, go and work with the great Thomas Edison? I'm not educated, I don't have money, I don't have influence, I don't have anything. He did not let that stop him. His great desire was his fuel, and that created the momentum in his life. And that's one of the things I really loved about this story as well. So that was just my take as well.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about some of the secrets to successes, and that is one of the secrets to successes, is to know what you want, hold on to what you want, and don't when the opportunity comes, you just take that opportunity. Does anybody else have anything else? Adrian, Anna, Claire's going to just listen, or Bill. Do you guys have anything else to add to that? Anna?
No, I'm just listening.
All right, that's fine.
Anna, would you like to say something?
No, nothing in particular. I'm just thinking, how do I apply that across my life? That's pretty much all.
Actually, when I
sorry, that's really what this is about, Anna. Is
Exactly.
how do you apply these in your life? What do you want out of your life? Now you've got to have a definiteness of purpose, and know what you want, and then go for it. Basically, yep. Sorry, Adrian, you were saying.
Oh, no, the first thing I was going to say is, like, the first time I read this book was in 1997. And I've read it several times between then and now. And every time I read the first chapter, it's like meeting old friends again. Those anecdotes, like the little girl asking for the 50 cents for her mother and everything. But Anna, one thing about this book that has just occurred to me is, because it was written so long ago, the 5,000 people they spoke to were mostly men, not women.
That's
There
true.
were no female like captains of industry back then that they could draw experience on. And so you've got a valid point, Anna. How do you apply, and it's not misogynist or anything, this book, but how do you apply something that's basically written on how men think about going after their dream and apply it to a woman in today's world?
I'm more thinking, like, you really need to have a very strong idea of what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and this idea shouldn't change. This is probably one of the difficult part, because you need to have that idea which you can die for, pretty much, and you're not changing an opinion about that. So, for example, he met Edison, right, and he wanted to work with him. And what if he would meet him and Edison will be like a biggest snob in the world, and you have no desire to be even around that person? Would you change it? Like, if you change it, then the history will change. But independently whether Edison was good or bad or whatever, he still kept persevering what he had in first in mind before he even met him. So that's what I was pretty much thinking about. When you put an idea in your mind, like, I really want X, and this whatever you want, is it gonna stay there in 10-year time? Because people are changing, and women, I feel, maybe I'm just generalizing here, obviously, more flexible than men, more agreeable than men, so they might change quicker, fluctuate quicker. So today I want, I don't know, X, I don't know, the prince on the white horse. Tomorrow I wake up I don't give a damn about that prince. I want to be near the sea. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like one day you die for this wish, the next day you don't pretty much care about it. Then how does the universe give you something which you need to make up your mind? And I'm very straight person, and like I have a lot of male energy generally, so I'm actually the one who usually keeps the idea in front, but I'm also tend to change those ideas. And if I wish to work with the person and I start working with him, and I start overgrowing that person, I already wishing something else. Like it's just a quick process or something.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And with what you were saying there, Anna, is he didn't know what Thomas Edison would be like. But as it turned out, this is what Thomas Edison said about Barnes. He said, where did I write it? Maybe Alison's written it somewhere. But basically, I'm going to paraphrase. He says, when the opportunity came, it came in a different form and of a different direction. One of the tricks of no, that's not what I was looking for. But what you're saying is too many notes. But what you're saying is that when Edison met Barnes, Barnes was so definite about what he wanted. He looked like a tramp, and but Edison saw within his eyes his burning desire, and that's what gave Edison the inclination to give him a job in the first place. And Barnes just needed that to take on and see what he wanted. And I think really what it comes down to is the big picture. What is the big picture of your life that you want? What's the one thing that you will not veer away from? Now, there might be different paths to get there.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like when you start determining which way you're going, you're pretty much cutting off all other opportunities you can go to, right?
Yeah.
So you know that you're gonna miss out on this just because you're going to point A, like not point B, point C, point D, which you can also go to, but you'd already decided that you're gonna go to point A.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. When you make a decision to do somewhere and go in some direction, you cut out the opportunity of all the others. So you really want to find something you're passionate about that you would do in your free time kind of thing, and just follow it as much as you want.
Well, depends if you I find often people confuse like the idea they're chasing, whether it's something to have or something to do rather than what they want to be.
Yeah.
And if you draw a line in the sand, if you like, to be a certain way, you'll find people that really want to do something start collecting information about it. They start dressing like people that do that. They start seeking out people that do that. And then all of a sudden, when they pick up a newspaper or a magazine, stuff starts jumping out of them. In fact, you could say one day we could hope optimistically that social media, the way advertisers follow us now, will actually use that technique to put the right opportunities in front of us to help us live a fulfilled life. And it won't be just to buy something. It will be to become something. And, you can see elements of that. But I can give you an example. When I was a kid, I knew what I wanted to be when I was 7 years old. I didn't know how I was going to do it. Everything I did, I related it to that. So it didn't matter what subject I did at school. And I had disappointments. First of all, they didn't have a school subject that covered that. They didn't have a university course covering that. But and the nice thing about the Barnes story is it's not like he's applying for a job to Edison and sending him a cover letter and a box of chocolates and a CV or a resume. He's going in at the lowest point because he knows once he's inside, he can work his way up somehow. That's getting your foot in the door. That's the same as a salesman getting their foot in the door. That's the same as having a first date with someone or a first conversation with somebody. But I never really gave up on my dream. And the way I got into becoming what I wanted to become was really from just everybody knew that's what I wanted to be. And I was introduced to people who were putting me closer and closer to becoming that. And it wasn't about something I wanted to have, and it wasn't what I wanted to do on a day-to-day basis, like what I wanted to do as a job. It was, it was what I wanted to be.
Yeah. And that actually curtails nicely into the second story about 3 feet from gold. And one of the common causes of failure is a habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat, right? And now, as you were saying, you knew what you wanted to be, and even although they didn't have that course at school, you still persisted until it just became who you were. So, 3 feet from gold. Now, who wants to give some feedback on that story? Go on, Gregory.
3 feet from gold. I think that, of course, there's a lot of good points in there, but I think kind of the biggest point to me in that story is the fact that because of the fault line and the vein of gold being just 3 feet off, if this isn't really specialized knowledge, but if he had what he learned later, if he had taken the time to do a little study research and about the situation, he was just 3 feet away from continuing on and with that vein of gold. But he didn't realize, about the fault line and about all of that, and he basically gave it all up for pennies. And somebody else came in, looked into it, talked to people, and found out that it's just right over here. And he got the gold. And later, he found his gold in insurance. But I think he learned a lesson in that, and that's the lesson I gained from that. And I've kind of known that a long time, but that brings it back to the point. Whenever you're after something and things get rough or it seems like it's closed off to you, just calm down and study that situation. Find the knowledge you need and really look into it before you throw it away, because you might be, 3 feet from gold.
Yeah, well, it actually says in the book, before success comes in any man or woman's life, he or she is sure to meet with temporary defeat and perhaps failure. When defeat overtakes a man or a woman, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. That's exactly what the majority of people do. And I think that's the reason behind the story, is that when you are going to go for something, you are going to have challenges and things are not going to work out the way that you want them to work out. And, and it can get quite hard when you keep not achieving what you want to achieve. But as you said, Gregory, if you can actually take the learning experiences from that, you're getting closer and closer to achieving that goal.
Yeah,
Alison. Sorry, Gregory and then Alison. Gregory?
Oh, I was just going to say, he also had to, it does get difficult, because when he was seeing that there was no more gold, he was faced with the people who had invested with him and getting them paid back. He had a lot of coming down on him pressure, which probably made it much more difficult to see clearly and think clearly in that situation. But it's It's quite a story, though. It just a little bit of study, and it could have saved all of that. And that's there's a lesson there, and I don't know if that's specialized knowledge. That's a whole different chapter. But that study and research and learning about that situation, it could have saved him a lot. It could have saved changed the whole story.
Just before you go on, Alison, essentially one of the ways to be successful is to build the right team around you. And one of the things that Barnes did not do in that first story was he did not go and seek out the guidance of a professional to seek out the gold lines. And had he done that, he would have realized he was literally 3 feet from gold. Alison.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, Paul. As a coach, I always say that everything we need is within us, because we have our own higher self, we have our own intuition, we have our own intelligence, however big or small it might be, and our own experience. All of that is valid, but we also have our limitations because we're human. Now, one of the things, as both of you have mentioned, you directly and Greg inadvertently, implicitly, is that the research and whatever you don't have to do yourself, and building the team is, yes, you don't have all the skills and the knowledge we need. So go and talk to somebody who does. And I know sometimes, and Greg did mention a very valid point, he had investors and things to be responsible to. But, sometimes we need to realize, as they say, you need money to make money. And sometimes it might just be a little bit of stopping where you are and not being overwhelmed by the emotion, which is a negative emotion. And that's another point that is made later in this chapter, that, when your thoughts determine your outcomes. And so I'm kind of mixing things up here. But basically, if you don't have everything within you, look to somebody who does. And they might be the very people who can give you what you need. And it might even be that with the investors, for example, you might need to say, listen, guys, I just need you to give me a little bit more leeway. I'm going to go and talk to somebody who knows, or back up a little bit and do it before things get so bad. Talk to somebody who knows, because you never know where that might lead you. And absolutely, having a team of people around you is so important. So those are other things that I really love about that story.
Thanks, Alison. You always say things so well. Anna, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I guess it's not necessarily for me that you need to keep going and keep digging to get this gold, because he effectively got more than if he would get the gold. So that's my view, is that the life gives you opportunity for a reason to be greater than you are. So if you believe that, oh, he could have just get that gold and be happy, he probably wouldn't. He would be happy only the way how it went, through that little hiccup, because he learned a different profession and he becomes so absolutely successful. So exactly because of that. So I'm just my view is that, yes, of course, if it's deemed for you, you're gonna get it. But if it's not, then there is something greater for you around the corner. That was not his in the first place. Like, there was a different pathway for him.
But that's very well said, because what you're saying is that he did go on to be one of the few insurance salesmen that sold $1 million a year. It's ridiculous. Now we do it a day, but back then it was $1 million a year. That was the part of the next story about the 50 cents, where the little colored girl walks into the barn and his uncle, R.C. Darby's uncle, is doing his stuff, putting some wheat in the mill or whatever it is. And this little girl turns around and says, I need 50 cents. My mom says I need 50 cents. And back then, 100 years ago, a coloured girl would never talk back to a white person or anything like that, especially down south where it is. But the girl just did not budge and did not move out. And the uncle looked up again and saw the little girl there and said, I told you to shoot, now shoot. And the girl just turned around and said, my mum says I need 50 cents. And then the uncle got angry and picked up a shovel or something and was heading towards the girl, and she stepped forward and says, my mum says I need 50 cents. And the uncle stopped and pulled out 50 cents and gave it to the girl. And the whole thing behind that story was for R.C. Darby, there was two things. No does not mean no, especially as an insurance salesman. No does not mean no. And that's what I got out of that story and the 50-cent lesson. Who wants to give their view on that 50-cent lesson in resistance? Let's
I
go,
can.
Alison, please. Oh, Anna, yeah, go.
Yeah, I can just my few moments. I can relate to that a lot because I had situation where I needed to get the funds, and the funding every funding manager was saying my broker said he can't do anything, and I found the funding manager which could do it, but then came back and said no, the investors don't want to invest. And then I turned around and said, I don't accept that now, go back to investors and talk to them. And we started talking and more, and they were saying no and no and no, and I was saying no, you can't say no. And in the end, they came back with the substantial amount and they invested. They just like the only idea was that negotiation and just not accepting no. And from that point, I learned a lot, because I learned that I absolutely can't accept that I'm not going to get those funds, because I knew that I'm going to get those funds, and I knew that they're going to give me those funds, and there is no other way around. But it also taught me that you need to work up yourself to get into the situation that you absolutely would not accept from life any other option. So that's the only way. And then you get in yourself in the different state. You even vibrating with a different energy. You become higher than yourself, and then the way how you see that a lot of people started getting drawn to you, and you elevate, and at that moment the most important thing is to work with the ego, because you get elevated not because of you, because you got that opportunity, and that opportunity was allowed for you to get, and you cannot, like, if at that point, at any moment of time, you allow your ego to start inflation, that's gonna go in the absolutely polar direction, wrong direction. So that's it was that moment which I found myself absolutely new for me, and I was holding my breath and thinking, I want to stay there. What should I do to keep going up, not to go back? At least stay there as long as possible.
I love that story. I love the fact that you didn't take no for an answer, and that's really what this story is about. And it's for anybody that wants to achieve anything significant in their life. You're going to take a lot of no's before you get there. Right? Alison, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Anna said. Firstly, I love it. And I love your own awareness of how our ego gets in the way of what, our higher self wants, because, our higher self, our soul actually wants this and knows it's right for us. But our ego gets in the way, saying, no, you can't have it, because that's how we're wired. So I love that you're aware of that, because not a lot of people are. So awesome. Um, and the other thing I was wanting to say, at the beginning you said if you don't know what your desire is, how do you get it? You have just now shown, albeit in a very specific example, that when your desire is so strong, you will let nothing get in the way. And to me, that answers that first question, except, well, answers half of that first question. And I think the half of the first question, by my interpretation, and I might be wrong, is how do you find what that thing is? And I think, as Paul kind of said it as well, it's a thing that you want so much, no matter what it is. And Adrian also said it's who you want to be. Even if you don't know what it is you want, it's who do you want to be in the world. So for I want to be somebody who's a role model for people, whether it's children or my family or whatever, or a leader in terms of being, somebody who's got lots of things to share for whatever reason. That's who I want to be. What I have to do is another matter. And if I'm really strong in my desire to be this person or this entity, then that's my desire that the universe will then feed. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'm not even sure if that kind of fits what you're thinking, but I just thought I'd offer that for consideration.
No, it does. I understand what you're saying. However, like, I have one but. When, like, it's good when you possess a lot of knowledge, and when you can share that with people so that people grow, and it's like, it's nice to see people growing, or they leverage from your knowledge. Like, it's really cool. I know that I need to work a lot with my ego and with arrogance and a lot of things. So when you work with other people and when you share a lot of knowledge, that's where it might be beyond like normality. So how do you know when
Sorry,
it's like?
Anthony, can you just turn your microphone off? We're getting feedback from you.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks. Thanks.
Anna, just repeat that question.
Sorry. All I was saying is, in my situation, if I become a role model, and in a lot of situations, I can see, like, I can feel when people come and say, we want to be around. Can you do the speech? Can you do this? And at that moment, how to stay humble and to stay. I'm always grateful to those opportunities, but staying humble sometimes is a challenge.
Sure. And that was just an example, but what I was trying to say is it's your passion to be whatever you want. And sometimes being a role model only happens after we've become an example. So sometimes you're there to be an example. Like, I used to be this really for example, right? I used to be this really, highly driven person who was just full on about money, whatever. And I'm not saying that's you, I'm just using that as an example. And then I realized, you know what? That wasn't really making me happy. In fact, it actually cost me my health, cost me my marriage, it cost me whatever. So now I've actually changed that. So I don't want you to do that, because I don't want you to do it my way, because this is what it could happen to you. So now that I've got this other path, I'm finding a much happier, do you know what I'm trying to say? So you can still use your yourself, if you like, as a role model in terms of the lessons that you've learned in yourself. You don't necessarily have to be a role model who says, look at me, I've kind of got it all sorted. I don't think anybody's really got it sorted, in my opinion. So I was just kind of saying, your passion is really what could be your driving force. Your passion is what will bring in that desire, even if you don't know what it is specifically. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's never about a specific product or service. It's what you become. That's only just a small detail. Like whether it's $20 notes or $50 notes, that's the detail. That what you become is more than the job, and more than what the business you start sells. It's what you're becoming after that that is your goal. Whether you become a philanthropist. I tell you a very good example. My kids watch a lot of Marvel movies, right? And Iron Man. And Iron Man sums it up in 4 words. He said, they say, what's your superpower? Because they've all got superpowers, but he doesn't. He says, I'm a billionaire, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. That's who he is. That's his superpower. But it doesn't go into detail about how he became, like what he's a genius, physics or literature. It doesn't go into whether he's a playboy with men or women. It doesn't go into billionaire, like 3 billion or 5 billion. It doesn't go into philanthropy, whether he helps children, animals, or politics. That's what he is. That's what he became. Those 4 words. And what we get taught in school, and probably they still teach it in school, is that you have this narrow channel you have to go through, that you only have one choice. And if you make the wrong choice, you're going to be stuck with it for the rest of your life. But if you have people around you who have had the experience, you maybe get more faith that it's not always done by the book. It's not always done by the syllabus or the curriculum of the school or the TAFE or the uni or whatever the certificate 3 is for it. You've got to have faith that if people know what you want to be, they will bring people to you that will become your brain trust, and they will help you get there.
Well, one thing talking about that, and this is actually something that he wrote later on in the book, but when you actually know who you are and when you know what you're going to do, you actually start to send out you become magnetized and you send out an electromagnetic field that attracts that back to you. And I find this because this is one of the biggest things in the first chapter that I think, and you're talking about the schooling system, and the schooling system is there to help people turn out to be good employees. It doesn't turn out entrepreneurs. And so if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't recommend the schooling system, but I do recommend education, obviously. But so where was it? Where did he say it? He said, we have the page. I even know. Well, one of the things now talking about Henry Ford, and we're talking about when he wanted the V8, to create the V8, and he went to his engineers and he said to the engineers, I want you to create an 8-cylinder motor. And the engineer said it was impossible. And Ford said, just do it. And he came back 6 months later, and the engineer said, it's impossible. And Ford said, just do it. And then he came back a year later, and the engineer said, it's impossible. He said, just do it. And then out of nowhere, just somehow that idea came to you. And that was that persistence, and that was that knowledge that when you have your definiteness of purpose and when you know what you want, things will start to come towards you. You start to attract that. I might just get Anthony, because Anthony, let's get your take on it. We've gone through the
I just flipped open the book Think and Grow Rich at page 8, which I think is sort of a theme about what you guys are trying to talk about. Perhaps you do not need all of that to be found in the book. No one of the 500 men from where experiences it was written did, but you may need one idea, one plan or suggestion to start you towards your goal. Somewhere in this book you will find the needed stimulus. But what we're talking about with ultimate goals, we may not know what our ultimate goal is, or we have a hunch, but as long as you're pursuing or searching for it, it'll just take that one situation, that one moment. For a lot of people, I find it takes crisis. For me personally, it took crisis before I decided to take action, and then found the book, and then put my imagination to work, which brought me to the outcome of my ultimate goal. And that's different for everybody based on their skills, their memories, their past. But yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. It doesn't have to be complicated, I don't think. You just have to be open to the suggestions that'll flow your way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I think one of the things we talked is that it's got to be hard and you've got to work hard. But the reality is it's not hard. It's just persistence that's going to get you there. Once you know what you want, you just keep on that path and you never do.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Alison.
I just want to continue on the point that Anthony made, and well, my perception, my impression of it anyway, is that when you think something's impossible, well, you think, hey, there's no point, it's impossible, right? Let's just go home, it's over. But when you think there is still possibility, then you are open to anything that is available, and not giving up means that you keep going. It's like that last three meters, right? Had they just keep going because they refused to give up impossible, notwithstanding money or whatever, it's just keep going. And Henry Ford obviously had the money and the wherewithal to have his engineers keep going. So when you just persist, because you are not willing to take impossible for an answer, as Anna showed us with her example, that you are just hanging out for knowing that it is possible, and then the universe will deliver the possibility. So that, I think, is a really important point that Anthony was making, is that, just being open and continuing to be open is what will bring in the opportunities you need.
And if you're consistent as well as persistent, and that everything you do is for getting you to become that, then everything, as Paul said, it attracts to you like a magnet. And it doesn't matter what you do, you'll be like watching TV and an ad will come on, or a line in a movie or a song will give you the answer you need of who you need to call the next day at 9 o'clock to get what you want.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's not magic. It's just energy. It's the right energy in the right place. It's if you fish in a dirty pond, you're going to get disappointing meal of fish when you get it home. You've got to be fishing in healthy ponds, healthy groups of people who can help you, but they don't have to be rich. They don't have to be smart. They just have to be connected to other people, and those other people are the ones they will bring to you. It's never your direct contact. It's always 3 people removed. 6 if it's Kevin Bacon, but 3 if you want to hire someone or meet someone.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Every person I've ever hired in a company, the ones that I've kept have been 3 times removed from the person who answered the ad and came for the first interview. It's been one of their friends. That's been the keeper.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, Anthony, did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was just looking at 50 Cent lesson in persistence in chapter 1. Has everyone read that one?
Yep, so we've gone through that one already and we've discussed it. That's where Anna was talking about her persistence when she was trying to get some deals, and she did not take no for an answer. So it was a great experience, a great lesson that Anna shared with us.
Can I share mine?
That's not why that rapper is called 50 Cent, right? It's not after that story.
Sorry, what was that?
That rapper called 50 Cent.
No,
named
it's
after
not
that
after
story,
that
right?
Yeah, can you share your story, Anthony?
Oh yeah, my story of persistence is I'm in far north Queensland in Cooktown, and but been up here for 2 years. I haven't allowed that to stop me from being persistent to the direction of where I want to be. And I'm far removed from the positional place or location I need to be to make my business a success. So I've been putting it out there. I read my affirmation every morning and every afternoon, and in an indirect way, or like you were describing, three movements from any situation, I've come about with lining myself up. The universe has just delivered the right people in sequence, so I can pretty much do it remotely. I'm planning for another year, but it's taken me 2 years to get to where I'm at, just through persistence, and no tell sign of anything that's going to happen, or it's just that persistence. It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen, and I have to get up and just tell myself that this is where I'm going to be. This is what I want, and it's just funny how things have played out. And I try not to share my dreams with people, especially in the environment that I work in. I work in local government, and they're very narrow-minded people in local government. So I've learned to keep my ideas and dreams to myself until I find the right people to reveal them to. And the universe usually delivers those people. They give me a tell sign that they're open to that type of idea. Which I discovered this week, actually. An engineer who works in council, but he's from Afghanistan and his wife's from Afghanistan, and they came here with nothing, and they've been here for about 10 years, but he wants to get into property development, and he's an engineer, but he doesn't know how to do it, and so I've been explaining stuff to him, and then through a friend of his, that other doors have opened up, and it's just interesting, exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, thanks. That's all I wanted to say.
That's right. Well, one of the things that he is in that first chapter is when riches begin to come so quickly in such great abundance that one wonders where they have been hiding all those lean years. So I suppose, my take on that is, when you persist, it's kind of like a scale. You keep adding more and more onto the scale until you hit a tipping point, and then riches, and then all of a sudden it just flows. I think it's what Anthony was saying. You keep persisting with what you want to do, and you keep getting the right contacts around you, and then eventually everything just falls into place, and everything just works for you. Anyone else have a different take on that, or something similar?
Sometimes people have a problem with the persistence thing, because we're also taught doing the same thing over and over again is a sign of insanity if you're expecting a different result, and that's a
limiting belief.
Yes, a limiting belief with respect to persistence.
Yes.
It's all about your interpretation, I believe. But one of the things that Paul just mentioned.
Alison, Anthony, can you be getting your feedback?
Sorry.
Can we? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Go, Alison.
So one of the things that you just mentioned, Paul, that thing you read out, it followed on to say that riches begin with a state of mind, a definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work, which is basically saying that all you need is to have the right mind to attract what you need in. And that whole chapter talks about a whole lot of other things. That success comes to those who become success conscious, and failure comes to those who become failure conscious by comparison. And then he talks about the energy and the vibration of the energy. That, and I'm paraphrasing here, ether is an energy that moves at such an incredibly high rate of vibration that it is filled with the form of universal power, speaking of the universe, which adapts itself to the nature of the thoughts of that person. So he's talking about, that you want riches, you've got to have a definite purpose in mind. And when you have that definite purpose in mind, the energy vibration you send out, which is I think what Anna was saying, the energy vibration you send out will then attract to you the very thing you're trying to achieve. So I know we've been saying that in various ways, but I thought be really good to put those thoughts together.
Gregory, do you have your thoughts
From
on
his,
that?
of course, not me.
Well, I wasn't raising my hand, but there is something that I was thinking while everybody was talking about Henry Ford's story. Every time I hear that story, I'm always wondering the impact that ended up having going forward on his engineers, because he had the persistence and the desire to accomplish what he was visualizing, what he wanted to happen. They all believed it was impossible and kept wanting to give it up. He kept basically forcing them to keep on going back. So they eventually accomplished what they themselves thought was impossible. So I wonder what impact that had on them going forward as individuals, knowing they accomplished what they believed was impossible as a result of his persistence. Kind of like Adrian said about being in the pond. They were in the pond with him, and he made them do something they didn't believe they could do. So there's no way of knowing, but I always wonder what impact that had on each of them going forward, just because of exposure to him and his persistence.
Can
That's
I just
yeah.
on that note, if I can just say, no great thing has ever been accomplished by an individual by themselves. So I reckon they'd all be patting themselves on the back because it was a huge accomplishment on a global scale. Even though they didn't even know it at the time, I don't think they knew they did something great, but the ripple effect of that impact still echoes in the world today.
What is that? I missed the first bit because of the feedback.
With Ford and his team of engineers and designing the combustion engine, and also the Model T, even though it was really ugly, he stuck to the gun and he said, no, we're going to create this vehicle. And through all of the hard work of his engineers, he created the first, it wasn't the first combustible engine, but it was the first mass-produced combustible engine, which then changed
and
the
the
world.
corporate culture was one of creativity, and there would have been times where Steve Jobs told them to do something and they said it's impossible. I mean, we ask governments all the time and they tell us it's impossible.
And that's really part of the theory of the first chapter, is taking that's impossible and making it possible. And later on, we're going to come up against, he's going to tell us a story of his own son that was born without any ears. And I'm not going to ruin it, but his son was born without any ears, and he refused to let that son be deaf and mute. And the son eventually, well, I'm spoiling the story, I suppose, did eventually get to hear. So he proved that the thought and your will, whatever you want, if you persist hard enough, you can bend nature your way, is the way he said it. Anna, I'd love to hear what you think about this. Anna?
Sorry, guys, I missed that. My husband came in and asked me if I want to put my son to bed. Can you repeat it?
So I was just saying, I'd love to hear what your take is on what we've been talking about, this persistence of Henry Ford, not giving up or anything like that.
The question is, how did he know that he needs that engine to be like that, right? So he forced them to work it out and it happened to be successful. But the question is, why did, there is no description, why did he think that would be the success if that engine is developed? Because it's a success story described here, but at the same time you can write exactly the same book with unsuccessful stories, with a lot of persistence, which developed something, a product, and the product throughout 10 years a person developed the product and the product was not successful, right? Was I don't know, for whatever reason.
Normally, they're not trying to build a product. They're trying to solve a problem, and the product
Yeah.
is a byproduct of solving that problem.
Yeah. So what the question is, like, he had in mind a certain type of engine, and he believed that that engine would solve the problem.
Yes,
The
because all
question
the
is,
other engines didn't solve that problem.
yeah, exactly, as that the other engine didn't. So it's just because of his genius that worked. So that means that at that moment of time of like whatever meditation, deep thinking, he got to the idea that that's how it should be, and he stuck to this idea. So, and he was probably not taught, or he didn't accept the usual teaching at school that if something doesn't go, use the common solutions rather than alternative solutions, which no one ever used, like walk the threaded paths rather than go with a new path.
Can I make a suggestion? Just with Edison's light bulb, he made 1,000 attempts and failed, but he found 1,000 ways of not creating the light bulb. I think when he went to build the engine, he came up with not just one problem, but a multitude of problems. And as he worked through them, I think the idea lended itself as trial and error. And then that sort of came to him as a resolute that was the direction he had to go, because he probably had no other option but to take that route, if that makes any sense.
And one thing about Ford is, he was actually a very shy man, and I think he went to 3rd grade at school, so he wasn't an educated man as well. Well, he wasn't. He didn't do a lot of schooling. He was educated in a different way, because we've got to be careful what we say about educated. But Ford, they were talking about Ford, and his wife was one of his greatest supporters. And he would come home, and the wife would always be there and help him with his invention. So he had a great partnership with his wife. But Ford, I suppose what I'm trying to say there is that he didn't go to university and study anything. He was one of these very determined genius types of people that knew what they wanted and stuck to it until he got it. And that's a great story, that V8, yeah. And when Alison said he had the means to do that, well, he had the means because he had already built the 4T. He had already built the business. So, it was just part of the process of his journey in life. He started with something small and built it into something massive. And along the way, created modern cars, or mass production of cars as we know it. Yeah. All right, look, we're coming to the end of the hour. Does anybody have any feedback or anything else that they want to talk about in the first chapter?
I just want to thank you, Paul. This is really turning into something.
You're welcome, Adrian. Look, I knew, this being Boxing Day, I knew that there was going to be some challenges. But again, I suppose just one of the learnings from Think and Grow Rich is just be persistent. And we've got a group of great people over here, and the people that turn up understand what an opportunity it is for progression in their lives. It's not. It's for everybody to improve their lives. I'd love to see Anna going out there and creating those deals. Adrian, I want to see your world's smallest expo become the world's smallest, biggest expo. Alison is an amazing coach. Anthony, I hope that you can build these amazing buildings around the world. I know you want to go to property development. And Gregory, I know that you've got your dreams. You've got your hand up, Gregory?
No, I was the chat comes up, it covers my screen and lights there. I had to turn it off.
Yeah.
But it's right in
Okay.
front of my camera because I got to use the phone now, so it's difficult. But that's what I was doing.
All right then. Okay. Yes, Alison.
I would like to echo, sorry, Paul. I would like to echo Adrian's comment to say, Paul, thank you. This has been a great visionary. Thank you for your vision of creating this group, because I think you are a visionary in this space of money, and I'm loving just all your innovation and all your creativity in coming up with all these various ideas to reach the masses. But in the meantime, those of us who are lucky enough to be here to have a chat about it, it's definitely, you know, edifying and educating me even more, and it's getting me to go through the book. I'm taking notes and I'm writing down page numbers and all sorts of things, which I'd never done before. Normally, I just underline a book, you know, like I could used to do at school. But now I'm actually putting so much more effort into it, and it's all thanks to you. And I just want to thank you for that. And I really want to thank everybody else as well. Your brains trust, if I can call them, your team, as Hill would call them, for all the insights and the wisdom and the lovely energy that they're all putting out here as well. So thank you, Paul, for being that visionary, and thank you, everyone, for adding to Paul's vision and dream and making the world a better place.
Thank you, Alison. You make me blush. But one of the things, like you, I'm taking notes, and I'm even highlighting them. I don't know if you can see. No, it's not helping me find the places that I'm looking for, because I thought, I've got to talk about this, I've got to talk about that. And I'm going, well, I'm glad that I've read the book that many times that I kind of know quite intimately now, because this year it's been one of the most profound books that I've written. It was, as Anthony said last week, it was written because of the recession, 100 years ago. But from that recession, we came all our modern leaders. We got the car, Ford. We got the aeroplane, Wright brothers. We got Marconi, who was the ether, internet, everything we do now, telephone. Who else, Anthony? Refrigerator. You mentioned refrigerator guy.
Light bulb, electricity.
Light bulb, like there. What else?
First electricity came through as well.
I sincerely hope, Paul, no matter how many times you've read it, you're going to find the thing in it from doing this discussion with us.
That's why I'm doing this discussion, because even Anna, I know she's gone now, but Anna's turned around and given a whole new perspective on why did he think about the V8. Now, I never thought of that. It's just the guy, I think Adrian or Anthony said, well, he had this vision that it's going to solve all the problems of the engine. Unfortunately, I'm not a mechanical engineer or engine-minded, so I have no idea. But so that's a good question. Why do some people do what they do? All right.
Can I just, on that note,
yes.
When I built some furniture that was from the 15th century, and I took a photo out of the internet, and when I was building it, it was a wedding table for a castle. And when I was building it, I found that it could only be built a certain way. And when I was going over the plans and the scale and drawing it up and creating the templates, I thought to myself, wow, they would have gone and had the same problems 600 years ago as I'm having right now. It could only be built in one particular way. And maybe with the engine and all of the problems that he went through, there was only really one solution. But he had to go through all of those problems to come up with that solution with the skill of many people. And with mastermind groups, don't forget, there's a third mind. So whenever you bring two or more people together, there's a third mind. That third mind is a creative mind, but it only works with complete trust and harmony. That's the power of a mastermind.
Yeah.
And
that's
probably he was building. He realized the race of obsolescence, like smartphones. They just started that race. 6 cylinders, 8 cylinders.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Anthony was saying is, it's a collective mind that we've created here. I've got my I'm limited, right? Or I'm trying to expand what I'm doing. But, Adrian and I and Anthony and Gregory and Claire and Alison and Anna, when we all contribute, we're all just increasing, we're creating a much more powerful collective group and that's why I say
Like putting batteries together.
that's
You
exactly
put more
right.
batteries together, you get a larger voltage.
Exactly.
That's a good analogy, Anthony.
It's in
Very
the book.
good analogy.
And as I said, it's like a rising tide rises everyone. So as we go through, we're all raising ourselves to go out. Anthony's going to go out and do this amazing stuff with his property development. Claire's.
I'm actually planning the year right now.
All right.
I'm planning the whole year of what's going to happen this year. Yes. And I've written it down. I've made a strategy and how I'm going to execute it. That's what I'm going to spend my Christmas holidays doing.
Yeah. And we're going to be honoured to watch you unfold that plan out as we go along. I'm sure you're going to share your successes. And Adrian, again, amazing. You've got so much skill and talent and amazing ideas behind you. And Gregory, same, amazing.
Great energy for 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of the feedbacks from last week was just how much knowledge Gregory had, the way he voices his opinions.
Articulates his words.
Yeah, that's the word. You see, you do better than me. And that was Anthony. But yeah, it's amazing. So look, I thank you. And next week we're on to chapter 2. So we're underway.
That's great. Well, thank you, Paul. And thank you, Anthony, Gregory, Claire.
Yeah, thank you all too, because I get a lot of perspective from you all. That when I read the book, if I read something even several times, sometimes something new comes to me. But basically, I'm usually getting the same perspective. So you guys talk about something, and I see things in a whole different light, which I'm sure is the purpose Paul started this up anyway, so everybody can get everybody else's perspective. So I love listening to everything all of you got to say. This is great. To me, 2 o'clock in the morning, this is worth it to me. I enjoy this.
Yeah, well, if you ever do Dr. Joe Martini, he talks about vibrations and light and things like that. And he says between 1 and 3 is when melatonin is the most active. So that's when you're in the most meditative state. So let's hope you're meditating, going into your, as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, into your quantum universe and start to tap into that genius future you and bring it back into this real tangible
Anthony
world.
must have a lot of energy because he's certainly got the vibration coming through the sound system. I'm going to leave you guys. I've got a house guest. So anyway, have a great holidays and a great start to the new year. And make sure, I mean, actually, it was only 2 days ago. I think it was a new moon. So the energy is right.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night. It's going to be an amazing year next year. All right. Good night, everyone. I'll see you all next week.
Right.
Bye.